The rain lashed against the windows of our small cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the tempest brewing inside me. For 20 years, Meredith and I had built a life here, a quiet, idyllic existence far removed from the chaos of London. Barnaby, a clockmaker by trade, found solace in the rhythmic tick-tock of gears and springs, a predictable counterpoint to the unpredictable nature of the human heart. It started subtly, a shift in Meredith's demeanor that I initially dismissed as stress from her job at the local bookstore. She'd come home later, her explanations vague, her eyes avoiding mine. The laughter that once filled our evenings dwindled, replaced by a strained silence. I tried to bridge the gap, suggesting weekend getaways and cozy nights in, but my efforts were met with indifference. The first real sign, the crack in our seemingly perfect facade, came in the form of a misplaced scarf. A silk scarf, not one Meredith owned, reeking of an unfamiliar cologne. I found it tucked between her sweaters in the closet, a splash of crimson amidst her muted wardrobe. When I confronted her, she paled, stammering about a customer at the bookstore, a clumsy encounter, a ridiculous explanation that even she didn't seem to believe. I wanted to believe her desperately, but the seed of doubt had been planted. I started paying closer attention. Her phone, once an open book, was now guarded, always face down, passwords changed. She'd leave the room to take calls, her voice hushed, her words indistinct. I felt like a stranger in my own home, watching the woman I loved slip away from me, inch by agonizing inch. The breaking point came on our 20th wedding anniversary. I had planned a surprise, a romantic dinner at the Michelin-starred restaurant in Bath, followed by a night at a luxurious hotel. I imagined us rekindling the spark that had dimmed over the years, rediscovering the joy we once shared. But Meredith arrived home late, her hair disheveled, her clothes rumpled, her excuses flimsy. She claimed she had been working late. The dinner was a disaster. She picked at her food, her eyes darting nervously around the room. The conversation was stilted, forced. We returned home in silence, the unspoken accusations hanging heavy in the air. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, the rain drumming against the roof, my mind racing, replaying every moment of the past few months, searching for answers, for explanations. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I crept out of bed and went to her study. Her laptop was open on her desk. It was a stupid, reckless thing to do, I know, but I couldn't help myself. I typed in her password, a password I hadn't known she'd changed, and my heart lurched as I saw the screen unlock. The first thing I saw was an email. It was from someone named Alistair. The subject line was "Tonight." My hands trembled as I clicked on it. The email was short, but its message was devastating. "Darling," it read, "tonight was incredible. I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Meet me at the usual place. I'm already counting down the hours. All my love." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the blood drain from my face, my breath catching in my throat. It was real. It was happening. The woman I loved, the woman I had dedicated my life to, was having an affair. I scrolled through her inbox, each email a fresh wound. There were dozens of them, spanning months, filled with intimate details, declarations of love, plans for secret rendezvous. I learned that Alistair was a colleague of hers at the bookstore, a young, handsome writer who had recently moved to town. I saw pictures of them together, taken in hidden corners of the bookstore, their faces pressed close, their eyes filled with a passion that I hadn't seen in Meredith's eyes for years. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I stumbled back from the desk, knocking over a stack of books. The sound echoed through the silent house. Meredith appeared in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide with alarm. "Barnaby, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice trembling. I pointed to the laptop screen. "Explain this," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She followed my gaze and her face crumpled. "Oh, Barnaby," she said, her voice choked with tears. "I can explain," I roared, my voice cracking. "Explain how you could betray me like this. Explain how you could lie to me for months. Explain how you could throw away 20 years of marriage for some boy." She started to cry, her body shaking with sobs. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice muffled. "It just happened. It just happened." I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You just happened to fall into bed with another man. You just happened to exchange dozens of emails filled with declarations of love. You just happened to plan secret rendezvous behind my back." She didn't answer. She just stood there crying, her silence a confirmation of my worst fears. I felt a surge of anger, a rage so intense that it threatened to consume me. I wanted to scream, to shout, to break things, but I couldn't. I was too numb, too hurt, too betrayed. "Get out," I said, my voice cold and flat. "What?" she asked, her eyes widening. "Get out," I repeated. "I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. Just get out." She hesitated for a moment, then turned and fled, disappearing into the darkness of the house. I stood there for a long time, staring at the laptop screen, the words of Alistair's email burning into my brain. "Tonight was incredible. I can't wait to see you again tomorrow." I felt a wave of despair wash over me. My life, my marriage, my happiness, all reduced to a few lines of text on a computer screen. I knew that I couldn't stay there in that house, surrounded by the memories of our life together. I had to leave, to escape, to find some way to heal. The next morning I packed a bag, filled with a few clothes, some money, and my most prized possession, my grandfather's pocket watch, a symbol of time, of resilience, of enduring love. I left a note for Meredith on the kitchen table. It was short and to the point. "I'm leaving," it read. "Don't try to find me." I walked out of the cottage into the rain and didn't look back. I spent the next few months wandering, drifting from town to town, taking odd jobs to make ends meet. I worked as a handyman, a gardener, a dishwasher, anything to keep myself busy, to keep my mind off Meredith. I tried to forget her, to erase her from my memory, but it was impossible. Her face was everywhere, in every crowd, in every smile, in every loving gesture. I felt like a ghost, haunting the edges of life, watching others live and love, while I remained trapped in my own personal hell. One day I found myself in a small coastal town in Cornwall. The sea air was crisp and clean, the sky was vast and blue, and the people were friendly and welcoming. I rented a small room in a guest house overlooking the harbor and started to rebuild my life. I found work in a local antique shop, repairing clocks and watches. The work was soothing, meditative, a welcome distraction from my pain. I started to meet people, to make friends. I joined a local walking group and explored the stunning coastal paths. I even started to paint, something I hadn't done since I was a child. Slowly, gradually, I began to heal. The pain didn't disappear completely, but it became less intense, less all-consuming. I started to realize that Meredith's betrayal was not a reflection of me, but a reflection of her. She was the one who had made the mistake, the one who had broken our vows, the one who had thrown away our life together. I was the victim, but I didn't have to be a victim forever. I could choose to move on, to rebuild my life, to find happiness again. One evening, as I was walking along the beach, I saw a woman sitting on a bench, watching the sunset. She had long, flowing hair, a kind face, and a gentle smile. I felt drawn to her, a sense of connection, a spark of hope. I walked over to the bench and sat down beside her. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" I said, gesturing to the sunset. She smiled. "Yes, it is," she said. "It reminds me that even after the darkest night, the sun will always rise again." We sat there in silence for a few moments, watching the sky blaze with color. Then she turned to me and said, "My name is Alina." "Barnaby," I replied. "It's nice to meet you, Alina." And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I knew that my life was about to begin again. But the story doesn't end there. Several months later, while I was starting to truly enjoy my new life with Alina, a letter arrived. It was postmarked from my old town, the Cotswolds. My heart sank as I recognized Meredith's handwriting. I hesitated, then opened it with trembling hands. The letter was a desperate plea. Alistair had left her, she wrote. He'd moved on to another woman, a younger model, and Meredith was alone, penniless, and filled with regret. She'd lost her job, her friends, and her reputation. She begged for my forgiveness, for a second chance. She claimed she realized what a fool she'd been, how much she loved me, how she couldn't live without me. As I read her words, a cold fury washed over me. How dare she? After everything she'd done, after the pain she'd inflicted, she expected me to welcome her back with open arms. To forgive and forget. I crumpled the letter in my fist, my knuckles white with rage. Alina, sensing my distress, placed a hand on my arm. "What is it, Barnaby?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. I showed her the letter, explaining the situation, the betrayal, the years of lies. Alina listened patiently, her eyes filled with empathy. When I finished, she took my hand and squeezed it gently. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, Barnaby," she said. "You've been through enough. You deserve happiness." Her words were like a balm to my wounded soul. I knew she was right. I didn't owe Meredith anything. I had given her my love, my loyalty, my life, and she had thrown it all away. But a part of me, a small, vindictive part, wanted to make her pay. I wanted her to suffer the way I had suffered. An idea began to form in my mind, a plan for a subtle yet devastating revenge. The next day I wrote a letter to Meredith. I didn't pour out my heart or offer forgiveness. Instead, I wrote a carefully crafted response designed to inflict maximum emotional damage. I told her that I had moved on, that I had found happiness with someone else. I described Alina, her kindness, her beauty, her unwavering support. I told her that I was grateful for the experience, that it had taught me valuable lessons about love and trust. And then I delivered the final blow. I wrote that I was willing to consider a reconciliation, but only under certain conditions. I demanded that she publicly apologize for her affair, that she confess her lies to our friends and family, and that she sign over her share of the cottage to me. I knew she would never agree to my terms. They were designed to be impossible, to humiliate her, to strip her of her pride. I sealed the letter and sent it on its way, knowing that it would arrive like a poisoned dart, piercing her fragile ego. I didn't hear from Meredith for several weeks. Then one day another letter arrived. It was shorter this time, less desperate, more resigned. She wrote that she couldn't meet my conditions. She couldn't face the shame of public confession. She couldn't bear to lose the cottage, the last vestige of our life together. She wrote that she understood my anger, my bitterness, my desire for revenge. She wrote that she accepted her fate. And then she wrote something that made my blood run cold. She revealed that she was pregnant with Alistair's child. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. A child, after all this. A child born out of lies and betrayal. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I wanted to vomit, to scream, to destroy something, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed by shock, by disbelief, by the sheer absurdity of it all. I realized that my revenge had backfired. I had wanted to hurt her, to make her suffer, but instead I had only made things worse. I had created a situation that was even more complicated, more painful, more tragic. I knew that I couldn't stay there in that town, surrounded by the memories of Meredith and Alistair and their unborn child. I had to leave, to escape, to find some way to make peace with the past. I packed a bag, said goodbye to Alina, and set off on another journey, this time with no destination in mind. I wandered for months, traveling through Europe, visiting ancient ruins, exploring bustling cities, immersing myself in different cultures. I tried to forget Meredith, to erase her from my memory, but it was impossible. Her face was everywhere, in every pregnant woman, in every cooing baby, in every happy family. I realized that I would never be able to escape her, not completely. She would always be a part of my life, a scar on my heart. But I also realized that I didn't have to let her define me. I could choose to forgive her, not for her sake, but for my own. I could choose to let go of the anger, the bitterness, the resentment, and embrace the possibility of a new future. One day I found myself in a small village in Italy. The sun was shining, the air was warm, and the people were kind and welcoming. I rented a small apartment overlooking a vineyard and started to write. I wrote about my life, about my marriage, about Meredith, about Alistair, about the betrayal, about the pain, about the healing, about the forgiveness. I wrote until my fingers ached, until my mind was empty, until my heart was at peace. And when I was finished, I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and smiled. I knew that my life would never be the same. I had been changed by my experiences, scarred by my pain, but also strengthened by my resilience. I had learned that love is a fragile thing, that trust is easily broken, that forgiveness is a difficult but necessary act. And I had learned that even after the darkest night, the sun will always rise again. Years passed. I never remarried, but I found companionship and contentment in my solitude. I continued to write, publishing several novels that explored themes of love, loss, and redemption. I became known as a writer who understood the complexities of the human heart. One day I received an email from an unknown address. It was from a young woman named Lily. She introduced herself as Meredith's daughter, the the child born from the affair with Alistair. Lily wrote that her mother had passed away a few years earlier after a long illness. She had left Lily a letter to be opened upon her death. In that letter, Meredith had confessed everything to her daughter, revealing the truth about her affair, her betrayal, and her deep regret. Lily wrote that she understood her mother's mistakes, that she forgave her for her imperfections. She wanted to reach out to me, to offer her condolences, and to ask for my forgiveness on behalf of her mother. I read Lily's email with tears in my eyes. It was a final act of closure, a confirmation that Meredith had finally found peace. I wrote back to Lily, expressing my sympathy for her loss. I told her that I had forgiven her mother long ago, that I held no bitterness or resentment. I wished her well and hoped that she would find happiness in her own life. And then I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and smiled. I knew that my story was finally complete. The rain outside has stopped, and the sun is beginning to peek through the clouds. A rainbow arches across the sky, a symbol of hope, of renewal, of the promise of a brighter future. I look out at the world and I see beauty, and I see possibility, and I see love. And I know that even after the darkest night, the sun will always rise again.